The main character has a talent, which consists in the fact that he can eat everything, in any quantity, and also adopt the features of what he ate. He did various things to fulfill himself, and eventually became a poacher in Africa. In this case, he has a partner named Hispanic. They receive an order from a certain lightning general. The task is to extract the heads and hands of gorillas. The next day they go hunting, and the main character notices a large number of soldiers in the forest, which is why they have to hide in the bushes. Confused by the fact that the forest has begun to thin out, he asks his partner about the direction in which they are moving. After the hopeful answer from the Hispanic that he knows where to go, people with weapons and in special uniforms appear out of the forest at lightning speed, thereby surrounding these two. As it turned out, all this was planned. It was an ambush to catch the main character. His partner turned out to be a member who worked for a special international police agency, and his real name is Eddie Montoya. They call him Pet Shop because he spent all the money he earned on buying the rarest animals, after which he devoured them all. The caught criminal is detained on charges of these and other crimes, handcuffed, and then put in a car and driven to an unknown destination. Suddenly, someone called Eddie, saying that there were 2 moons in the sky. This not only shocked him, but also angered him. Completely incomprehensible things began to happen to the car. It began to shake, after which Mr. Kim uses his ability to transform, and then kills everyone in the car. As soon as he destroyed the paddy wagon, he went outside and was able to make sure that there were really 2 moons in the night sky, which means that this is not the Earth, but something completely different. Suddenly, a pack of wolves ran out of the forest and attacked the main character, who had already turned into a tiger. After learning that it was not possible to bite through the skin of a wolf, he decided to change the appearance of a tiger to a hippopotamus and teeth to a shark, thereby killing and eating the attackers. After a week, during which Kim managed to hunt various animals, a bear with disproportionately large front paws, a snake, either poisonous or harmless, a deer with horns sharp as an awl, he went further to explore the area. I met a guy who immediately died, impaled on the horns of a deer running past. The ability of the protagonist allows you to take the form of the victim's brain and gain access to her memories. Thus, thanks to this murdered man, he mastered the local language. I found a monster handbook with which I could find out about the inhabitants of this place. 2 months later, Pet Shop is engaged in various research and experiments on animals. The Great Forest of the North. The main character goes to the trolls for further use in the experiment. After hitting one of them, in order to stop the troll's rapid regeneration, it makes a venomous bite, paralyzing that one. During the experiments, he learns that skills really exist. Skills do not work against those who possess them, and damage unrelated to the use of abilities can be inflicted on any organism. Kim is immune to skills as he is an earthling, and for others his attacks are deadly. Since childhood, he wanted to be the strongest, and in such a place there is an opportunity to do it. A certain character appears in front of us, saying that he has been reborn into a slime that can eat everything in a row, getting satiated, but at the same time spending his soul. He was chosen by the goddess of this island, Elmwood Island, as a consumable. Then a warrior chosen by the goddess appears, who follows moral precepts and protects people. The more danger humanity is exposed to, the stronger the warrior becomes thanks to the grace of the goddess. He tells about a terrible monster that brought disaster to the whole world, from whose power he died. Opening his eyes again, the warrior realized that he had returned 10 years ago. The goddess has given him one last chance, and now he must stop the monster. After talking with the elder, the warrior learned about the frequent disappearance of trolls recently. He went to their habitat to catch the monster. Meanwhile, the main character goes to the swamps of the Great Forest for the lizardmen, for their further absorption. We return to the warrior who met Slime on his way. He mistook him for a monster, his target. After attacking Slime, the warrior leaves, and Slime crawls into the cave to regenerate. The author tells about Slime's past life. Previously, he was a man who was considered trash by others, lived according to his instincts, did not strain himself, did not listen to his parents, who later turned away from him because he got fat, and by the age of 40 he never found a job. And so it turned out that somehow he ended up here, and even in the body of the strongest slime, in his opinion. According to him, he realized that he was the chosen owner of this place, despite his shabby appearance, which he received because of the pet shop. At this moment, a pet shop comes to the cave, and a slime jumps into his mouth in order to devour him from the inside. Then it turns out to be inside the main character and digested. Kim recalls and lists the events that have happened over the past 2 weeks, starting with the bad ones, Firstly, now his laboratory is good for nothing, and secondly, while he was hunting lizardmen, some slime splattered everything here. Now he tells us about the good. After he was attacked by a slime, jumped into it and digested in his stomach, he acquired new skills that turned out to be very interesting and useful. For example, the ability to devour metals and adopt their shape. Now we are transported to the dragon lands in the great forests. A dragoness without a name lives there, since lonely and proud dragons do not need it. But she has a nickname from her admirers, the scarlet spark dancing in the sky, and her cub, whom she jealously protects. The lizards of this forest worship her. Because of their regular offerings in the form of treasures, they are safe. But with all this, her attentiveness weakened after the birth of the child. She decides to fly and check the situation around, not feeling any danger and not hoping for something unusual. During the flight, she will notice traces of the battle, realizing that someone has invaded her territory. This situation awakens her anger and an unquenchable sense of revenge. Pet Shop at this time is studying the fact that the body of lizardmen is covered with dense scales, which is covered with mucus, which plays the role of an antiseptic and an antibiotic. He mentions that this very slime has an oat orientation, whereas slime is a combination of several. Thus, we find out that if the main character absorbs metal and transforms the slime into a metal slime, then he will definitely become stronger. A problem appears before him, which is the question of finding pure iron. He decides to use the eyes of the falcon, after which he notices a target on the mountain opposite, which will be difficult to reach, since this place is the territory of the orcs. At the same moment, a dragon flies right over his head, and he comes up with a plan that will be implemented a little later. Pet Shop studies the characteristics of orcs in the Monster Handbook, learning that they are evil creatures that value honor and pride, as well as these are creatures that are classified as monsters. We move to the dragon's lair, a cave in which not only the mother, but also her cub is located. Since she was going to fly away, she forced the baby to stay inside and not go out. 30 minutes earlier, Kim was tracking down the dragon's habitat at the expense of the lizardman's brain. It turned out to be easier than he had implied. On the way, he meets a magical barrier that he had already seen earlier in his memories, but it does not work against an earthman, so Kim calmly passes through it. The main character climbs the mountain into the dragon's lair itself, while having an appearance consisting of troll fangs, scales of a fatal bite, and body parts of several other terrestrial creatures. He created such an appearance in order to fool the dragon child. The kid tries to drive the pet shop away, but it turns out to be in vain. The main character notices and takes with him riches, next to which there were not even minerals extracted in mines. A week later, we return to the dragoness, who never found out anything, after 7 whole days. Upon returning to her house, she notices a suspicious oddity: the child does not meet her. The baby turned out to be lying unconscious on the side. Waking up, the child tells about the invasion of their house by a creature with big teeth and red skin. The main character's plan worked. The dragon mistook him for an orc. The baby's mother becomes enraged and goes to the orcs to brutally, fully and with all cruelty avenge her child. One of the orcs summoned, with the sound of a horn, all the others from the great forest. The battle began, lasting 4 days and 4 nights. As a result, the victory was won by the orcs, while they suffered far from small losses. About 12 survived. They left the great forest after the battle, thereby leaving the main character a delicious dinner consisting of a huge number of orcs, as well as a large and powerful dragon. The baby dragon ceases to feel a connection with her, which is why she cries bitterly and acquires a new strength, after which she spreads her wings and heads in a direction that is not yet known to us. Our attention is again focused on the main character, who in turn remembers everyone he ate during his stay in this mysterious place. He lists such creatures as hard wolf, troll, lizardman, orc, dragon, and many other monsters. Now he has managed to try everyone from the Monster Handbook, so there is nothing more to do here. He meets a merchant with a horse-drawn cart and says that he has lost his memory. Oddly enough, the stranger tells that such a phenomenon is quite common, since this place is quite dangerous. The man continues to talk about this territory: herbs that will bring back youth, lairs of rare monsters, treasures of ancient kingdoms. There are so many jewels here that even one of them can change your life, which is why greedy people are so eager to get into the great forests. Basically, they all die or they suffer the same fate as the main character, if they are lucky, of course. The merchant anxiously asks Kim to be careful, which he agrees to. Another pet shop plan was the pretense that we have just observed. He lied about his memory loss during the accident and headed to the city with the merchant, who told him the local rules. Thanks to this, he learned almost everything except one. The status window, it allows you to find out the position of a person, but for some reason he can't use it. Assuming that the reason lies in the fact that he is not from this world, he continued on his way. Once in a city called Santo Canargo, I was surprised, as it turned out to be huge. Kim noticed that it was much cleaner here than he thought. He caught sight of a recommendation written on a piece of paper that was attached to the wall of one of the buildings. It read, "In order to avoid infectious diseases, follow the rules of personal hand hygiene." After reading this information, he thought about how much civilization is developed here. Locals passed by him, discussing quite interesting things. They talked about the fact that only the royal capital is so clean, and all this is thanks to the second prince, because he was the first to guess that diseases are primarily related to hygiene. At the age of 10 he was already very gifted. It was also mentioned that the second prince is due to visit this city next month in honor of coming of age, and they would like to see him. The main character reminds us that on Earth the concept of hygiene was widely spread only in the 20th century, and here it is the Middle Ages. And how did a little boy even guess about this? The guy suggested the possibility of someone else besides him, preserving memories of the Earth. Some time later, he happened to meet the second prince. What was the prince's surprise, after all, when it turned out that the man he had ambushed in the forest was standing in front of him, before he got to an unknown island. Eddie Montoya is a member of the